Hi, everyone. My name is Camille McKinney. I am a leadership coach and consultant, and I work with women leaders who are contemplating their next career move and want the clarity, confidence, and courage to know they're moving in the right direction. So I'm thrilled to be here with you today. I hope that this topic, which is leading from the inside out, tapping into your EQ to manage change for yourself and others. I hope that you find this relevant and helpful, and I hope that at some point we'll stay connected in the future. So let's go ahead and get started. And before we jump into the content, I do want to share an exercise with you that was shared with me about a week or so ago. There is a coach out of Canada that I follow. His name is Michael Stanier, and he shared a very simple how to start your day routine that I think is really helpful. It's amazing how something so simple can be so impactful. So what I'd like you to do is get a piece of paper and a pen and write down these 3 statements, because the exercise is that every morning when you're starting your day, you will actually complete the statements in preparation for your day. So I have mine. I'm going to share them with you. The first one is the following. Today, I will let go of, and then you complete the sentence. Is there a habit that you've been wanting to let go of, or a feeling, and are you upset with someone? Is there anything that you're willing to let go of today in service of you? The second one is today I am grateful for, and then complete the sentence. Today I'm pretty grateful for the weather that I have. I live just north of Los Angeles, and we're having a lovely day today, so I'm very grateful for it. And then the third is today I will focus on. So maybe there's some intention that you want to set. So for me, I just want to do my best creating this video. So that is my focus today. So I hope that, if you work through this exercise, it shouldn't take you but a couple of minutes each morning. But as a way to really set the tone for your day, I think you'll find it as impactful as I have. So why don't we go ahead and jump into our content? So here we go. Would you win a game of emotions bingo? Since COVID-19 hit the scene, I'm going to say it's probably been about 7 weeks since we've been on what is called Safer at Home here in LA. I think I have felt a variety of emotions. So for me, let's see if I would win. Would I win bingo? I've been annoyed. Scared. I've definitely had moments of fear. Nervous. Sure. A few times I've been nervous about things. Frustrated. Absolutely. Sad. Yes, I've had some moments of sadness. Disappointment. Yep. Not everything is turning out the way I had hoped. So I've definitely felt some disappointment. Angry. Certainly. I've had some moments of anger. Outrage, yeah, a little bit. I can say I've had some moments of outrage as well. But I've also had some moments of happiness. We can, in spite of, the horrible things going on around us, find moments of happiness. And I can honestly say that I've been able to experience that. And over time, I've actually felt some calm, some that low-level anxiety that I kind of started with in mid-March has dissipated. So I definitely feel a lot more calm. And I will tell you, my favorite emoji is the embarrassed emoji. I actually didn't know that this emoji meant embarrassed. Should I be embarrassed for admitting that? But I think every day I use this emoji in either a text or an email with someone, but it is my favorite one to use. Managing our emotions during stressful times is not easy. I was raised to believe that it was wrong to express my emotions, so I became a master at hiding them. But we all know that unacknowledged and unchecked emotions can lead to bad outcomes for us and for the people around us. So I have some default reactions to some negative emotions that I'm going to share with you. You know, if it's fear or frustration that I'm feeling, my default reaction is anger. I'm not proud of it, but that is my default reaction. If it's insecurity that I'm feeling, my reaction can be adrenaline fueled problem solving, that kind of frenetic, I got to solve the problem point of view. So, yeah, you can imagine how neither of these default reactions is healthy, either for me or again for the people around me. So, when I started to learn about emotional intelligence, I felt like I was given permission to acknowledge my emotions, but it was really messy. With the awareness of those emotions comes the need to manage and regulate them when they're triggered. I love this slide. And this quote is no truer words were said. Emotions are data, not directions. So just because I'm afraid or angry doesn't mean I should unskillfully act on those feelings. We'll talk more about ways to pause before reacting on triggered emotions a little bit later. I do want to call out a great book that you may want to check out if this is a topic of interest. It's called Emotional Agility. Susan David, who shared this quote, is the author of that book. She also has a TED Talk that's worth checking out. So how can I take what I've learned about emotional intelligence over the years and my own leadership development journey and really take a look at how I have led both myself and others through change? What I did was I created a self-leadership model that I use when I'm coaching my clients, and I'd love to share it with you. The idea behind this model is one of leading from within. Those deeply personal skills that help the best of us show up as inspiring and empowering leaders for ourselves and for others. So as I review the components of this model, consider how the development of each of these self-leadership skills might impact your ability to lead yourself and others through change. The first one is self-awareness. This is about how present am I and am I able to reflect on emotions that I'm experiencing? So can I notice my own emotions as they arise, as I navigate this change? What am I noticing about others and their emotions? Next is self-knowledge. This is about our curiosity and our clarity about ourselves. What can I learn about myself as I move through this change? Next is self-acceptance. This is around empathy and forgiveness for ourselves. How do I feel about what I've learned about myself? Can I accept myself as I am? Am I willing to make changes that I want to make? Next is self-regard. This is about our confidence and our sense of worthiness. Am I making my needs a priority? Am I confident that I can navigate this change to the best of my ability? Next is self-care. This is around boundary setting and advocating for ourselves. What can I do or put in place in support of what I need right now? And then finally, selfless. This is about vulnerability and being of service to others. How willing am I to be vulnerable with others during this time? I want to talk a little bit more about vulnerability. Last week, I watched a webinar where an organization was interviewing Brene Brown, and the subject of the interview was resiliency. And she said a few things in the interview that really stuck with me, and I'd like to share them with you. One thing she said was that we need braver leaders, but things get in the way of that. And it's not necessarily fear that gets in the way, it's the armor that we put on. We brace ourselves for impact. She suggests that instead of putting armor on, we need to take it off and, quote, double down on transparency and vulnerability. to be willing to say, I don't know. I don't have the answer, but I'm willing to go look for it. So when we talk about self-leadership, I hope you can see that if we develop these self-leadership skills, it will help you to show up as a leader worth following. And today we're going to focus on the first two components, self-awareness and self-knowledge, by looking at how developing our emotional intelligence skills can help us lead through change. So given the work I've done as a coach of women leaders, there's a few things that I feel I know for sure. First of all, our ability to lead others starts with our ability to lead ourselves. Mastering our self-leadership enables everything else to fall into place. And then finally, anyone can develop their self-leadership skills with focus and commitment. So what I'd like to do is review a common emotional intelligence model and how each of the skills within the model impacts how we lead others through change. So self-awareness is one of four skills in one of the most common emotional intelligence models, which I'm showing you here. It includes two primary competencies. There's our personal competence, which includes self-awareness and self-management. And then there's our social competence, which includes social awareness and relationship management. So before we jump into each of those skills, let's just talk about EQ in general. And I'm sure most of you have had some exposure to emotional intelligence within your career. But what is EQ? It's been called the other kind of smart in comparison to IQ. Let's go ahead and look at this definition. Emotional intelligence, or EQ, is one's ability to recognize and understand emotions in yourself and others, and your ability to use this awareness to manage your behavior and your relationships. It is important not to confuse emotions with being emotional. I believe that our willingness to acknowledge our emotions is actually a leadership advantage. So why should we even care about developing our EQ? As we move through this model, it will become clear why we benefit at a personal level. And then from a business perspective, you'll see that a highly developed EQ can help us, one, manage our professional relationships effectively, two, adapt and respond versus react to unforeseen change in the market and in your business, effectively attend to the needs of our employees and customers, and you'll be able to make better decisions as your business grows and expands. When we get on the other side of this challenge that we're all experiencing, we'll be bringing back some employees into our teams. And so how can we make really high quality decisions to ensure that we are creating the right team? So let's jump in. So this is the first skill in the emotional intelligence model. It's self-awareness. Self-awareness is a foundational skill. When our self-awareness is developed, it impacts our effectiveness with the other three EQ skills we'll be reviewing. The question here with self-awareness is, are you able to notice the emotions you're experiencing as they occur? So again, self-awareness is our ability to accurately perceive your own emotions and motives and how they affect your thoughts and behaviors. Do you know who you are? Being present is key to developing our self-awareness, as well as being open and curious about yourself. So how can we do this? Some ways include identifying your values, your strengths and weaknesses, your preferences, and even your emotional triggers. Another way to increase your self-awareness is to ask for feedback. We all have blind spots, and they prevent us from accurately perceiving our emotions and motives. So if you really want to know what others think, ask them. Here's an exercise that I challenge each of you to complete when you're done with this video. Send out a text to 10 people you know and ask them, What are 3 adjectives you would use to describe me? Then notice when any of the adjectives you receive have an emotional charge, and then just sit with that feedback. Ask yourself, well, is this true? If yes, is this how I want to be perceived? If no, how do you want to be perceived by others? And then finally, what shifts are you willing to make to show up differently? I'm here to tell you 9 out of 10 of your adjectives that you'll receive will be very positive and will make you feel really great. And then you may get one that just kind of like, what does that mean? Just sit with it. Ask yourself those questions. Again, is it true? If it is true, is this how I want to be perceived? If not, how do I want to be perceived by others? And then finally, what shifts are you willing to make to show up differently? So a couple of questions to ask yourself about your self-awareness. Am I able to notice my emotions as they arise? How am I physically experiencing these emotions? And it is that physical experience that is going to help you notice your emotions. Typically, we have a physical response when our emotions are triggered. You might feel it in your stomach, that knot that shows up, that lump in your throat, that heartbeat that tends to speed up. These are your physical cues that an emotion may be triggered. So let's move on to the second skill, self-management. The ability to effectively manage your emotions and behaviors in healthy ways and adapt to changing circumstances. So the question here is, how do you manage your response when your emotions are triggered? Our ability to self-manage is dependent on our awareness of our emotions and triggers, and using that awareness to stay flexible and to choose positive responses. So let's look at the anatomy of a reaction, okay? First, there is an event. Something happens. This could be you receive a phone call or some information. It could be an event of any kind, maybe something you see on the news, or it can be a conflict that you're having with a coworker. When the event occurs, we typically have some kind of response to it. An emotion can be triggered. Our heart starts to beat, like we talked about, some physical response. The thing is that it's the meaning that we apply to the event that drives the response, okay? So the idea here is to ensure that you have a more positive response to the event, that you actually create space. And for me, I actually think of it as a bridge. Between the event and my response, I want to walk a bridge. I'm creating space between. Because if I were to react to the event, it may not come out the way I really want, okay? So again, I think of it as a bridge. This is where choice exists. This is where you have choice. So there are some ways that you can improve your ability to self-manage. One of them is to know your values. We talked about that before when we were talking about, do you know yourself? If you were to establish your own code of ethics, that helps to make the right choices when you're faced with a moral or ethical decision. Another way is to practice being calm by using deep breathing. You know, our mothers or grandmothers told us when we were upset to count to 10 before reacting. And that was actually really good advice. That time when you're counting is creating that space. And it's giving time for the information, you know, the stimulus or the event to move from the emotional part of our brain to the more rational part of our brain, so we can make a better choice, okay? So I would encourage you to name your gap. Again, for me, it's a bridge. I have a friend, her gap is a hammock. She imagines herself swinging between two trees in a hammock. So create an image that works for you that you can call up when you're noticing that your emotion is triggered. For me, again, it's that beautiful bridge. So a couple of questions to ask yourself about your ability to self-regulate, to self-manage. How have I responded to similar situations in the past? You'll remember earlier I told you about some of my default reactions when some of my emotions get triggered. And I noticed that I can actually get angry pretty easily. So do you have, a default reaction? Are you noticing any themes or trends? And is that the way you want to react? Are you interested in changing that reaction? The next skill is social awareness. It's the ability to understand the emotions, needs, and concerns of others, and it's the ability to pick up on emotional cues. I think of the 3 skills, this one probably right now is one of the more key. Are you able to notice how your team members are responding to what's going on? What their needs or concerns are about what's happening right now. So the question is, what are others telling you or not telling you? Key ways we demonstrate social awareness is through listening and observing. One way to do this is really easy. It's to stop talking and also stop mentally preparing your response to whatever they're saying. We are socially aware when we are able to really hear another person's perspective. And we can't do that if we're preparing our response. Are we willing to express empathy and sensitivity to another's feelings? Can you notice what others feel and think and be appropriately curious about what you're noticing? And can you seek to understand the other person's emotions and feelings, even if they aren't shared by you? So some questions to ask yourself about your own level of social awareness. How am I feeling about how others are feeling? Am I feeling a sense of understanding and empathy, or am I feeling frustration and judgment? So those are some things to explore. How curious am I about how others are responding to the change? If I have some curiosity, am I willing to go ask? I noticed that you were very quiet, during the recent team meeting when we talked about the change. What questions do you have about what's going on? And again, it's that some people need that one-on-one opportunity with you to really express how they're feeling about things. So take the time to inquire. And then the final EQ skill is relationship management. It's the ability to use your self-awareness and your awareness of others to maintain effective and rewarding personal and professional relationships. The success of this skill really is a sum of the other 3 skills. Those skills build what is needed to create strong relationships, and that thing is trust. Relationship management is the bond we build with others over time. Are you willing to be vulnerable with others, and can they be vulnerable with you? The strength of those bonds allows for being better at problem solving in relationships, being better at resolving conflicts and negotiating disagreements, and also being more assertive and skilled at communicating with others. So some questions to ask yourself about your current ability to manage your relationships. Am I willing to meet people where they are now with understanding and compassion? And can I help them by creating a vision of what's possible in the future? I think this final one is really key, helping people see beyond what's happening today. So there are 5 key actions that you can take now to get on the road to developing your emotional intelligence. The first one is get curious about yourself. This is about being curious about who you are and what's important to you. Some areas of curiosity might include what inspires you? What energizes you? What frustrates you? Getting a handle on these things will define how you show up as a leader. Next, challenge your default reactions. Move from being unconsciously reactive to consciously responsive. Try to avoid snap judgments and drawing conclusions so that you can create a more positive outcome. Next, connect to understand others. This is about developing those strong listening and observation skills. Take the time to learn about others and what's important to them. Start asking questions. Some tips around that though, try to avoid why questions. Those types of questions can create defensiveness, and that's going to get you nowhere. You really want to stick with what questions and how questions. Those are more rooted in curiosity. Cooperate to support each other. Identify mutual goals and effectively work together to achieve them by creating those strong, authentic relationships built on trust throughout the organization and in your life. And then commit to being of service to yourself and others. Understand how your collective EQ impacts you, your team, your organization, and your customers. So here's another thing that I know for sure, and I know this because I've experienced this with my coaching clients. When we develop our self-leadership skills, our presence, our compassion, our agility, our resilience, our joy, and our patience increase over time, as well as our perfectionism, our judgment, our shame, our expectations, our self-doubt, and our indecisiveness decrease over time. I'm sure you can see the advantage in really committing to developing your self-leadership skills. I think we all want our presence, our joy in life to increase, and we'd love it if our perfectionism and our self-doubt decreased. Now imagine how each of these ways of being can impact how you show up as a leader during great change. So ironically, this article, How to Demonstrate Calm and Optimism in a Crisis, showed up in my inbox the other day, and I would be remiss if I didn't share some of the key insights that I got from the article. McKinney and Company is a management consulting organization. They put out some amazing, if you're not familiar with them, they put out some amazing studies and articles. And so I've been following them for years. So some of the key insights that I got include, business leaders underestimate how much their employees look to them for information. In times of great change, especially if you're in an organization that moved from an office building now to remote working, that's a huge change for folks who aren't used to it. And so as a leader, we really need to be communicating more with our employees to help them move through such significant change. Leaders require an awareness of what's happening in the outside world and in the inside world, effectively connecting situational awareness with self-awareness, or what they refer to as integrative awareness. Amazing. I just love this phrase, integrative awareness. It really is taking everything into an account. And how does my awareness of what's happening outside, in the world, and what's happening inside, whether it's inside of me or in my team members, to really help us make, the right choices going forward. And then finally, a leader who is deliberately calm can reframe a threat as an opportunity for learning and innovation. I think this is really key. It's like this is about, can I be aware about, have the awareness of how this situation is impacting me, help myself work through it, and then model that for others. So that's really key. That's that brave leadership that we talked about a little bit earlier. The article, and I would really recommend you check it out. The article goes on to list 6 practices that leaders can put into place to develop their own integrative awareness. And what I noticed is that all of them are personal to that leader and how that leader shows up. So you may be thinking, wow, Camille, this is really great information, but now what? What do I do next? So the mistake that people make is that they think they know what they need to know to make change happen, but it isn't enough. What is standing in your way? It's kind of like, I'll use the example of losing weight. We all know how to do it, but many of us don't. Why? Because we have these well-established patterns that are hard to break. And for some of us, we need support to create change in those patterns. Our wants and our desires need to be stronger than your need to maintain your patterns. And we just simply can't do it alone. So we've spent the last 20 minutes or so, focusing on self-awareness and self-knowledge, the first 2 of the 6 components of the self-leadership model that I shared with you. I'd like you to take a look at the model again. Is there an area where you can see that you might need some support to develop in that area? So maybe you've heard this saying, a rising tide lifts all boats. What does this mean? In business, it means that a positive improvement in one area, like how you show up as a leader at work, will have a positive impact on other areas of your life, like how you show up as a leader in your family, your friendships, and other important relationships. We don't just show up as leaders at work. Leadership isn't something you start at 9 a.m. and stop at 5 p.m. Coaching does just that. It has a multiplying impact on all areas of your life. So here's what I'd like to do. I'd love to invite you to continue the conversation. I invite you to schedule a 45-minute discovery call with me. This call is complimentary, and they are limited in number and are reserved for people who are ready to make a change. Maybe you can see how making some small shifts can yield significant benefits, both personally and professionally. If you're ready to focus on you and what you need, we spend a lot of time focusing on others and keeping ourselves, frankly, at the bottom of our list. Maybe it's time to move yourself to the top of the list. And then finally, if you're ready to invest in yourself, you are ready to commit to the process. So in this discovery call, we'll talk a little bit about what's happening. In what ways are you getting or not getting the results you want? We'll discuss what's possible. What can you expect to gain through coaching? And then finally, we'll decide if working together is a good fit for both of us. So let's connect. If you go to my website right here on the screen, and you can sign up for that 45-minute complimentary discovery call. And for anyone who does sign up for a call, what I will also do is provide you with an exercise that I work with all of my clients through, and it's called Identifying Your Core Values. Again, this is one of the foundational things that we need to do in developing our self-awareness. And it's actually kind of a fun exercise. My clients really enjoy it, and I'm happy to share it with you. So I want to thank you for spending this time with me. If you recognize yourself in anything that I covered today, please connect with me. I'd love to support you. I'd like to leave you with an amazing quote, and I believe this quote with all of my heart. When I am trusting and being myself as fully as possible, everything in my life reflects this by falling into place easily, often miraculously. So again, thank you, and I hope we connect soon.